So, just to kind of say a little bit from the start about generosity. Generosity is often something that we think about where we, give away food or money or help a charitable cause, to give something externally to something else. And that in and of itself is a wonderful thing, especially if it's something you want to do. But the type of generosity that I want to speak about today is how, by being generous with yourself in the way that you hold yourself in a particular frame of reference, whether that be within an experience that happened in the past with a particular person, a particular situation, and then an identity is formed around that where you refer to yourself within that frame of reference. So it's as if holding a snapshot of some kind of incident or experience in the past and holding yourself to that. And in addition to yourself, the people that may be involved in that frame, whether it be family, friends, relationships, all of human life, where we can hold a grudge. We can feel that we did something wrong. We can feel guilt. We can feel shame, some sense of limitation, blame, all of those things, and many more. So, what I'm speaking about is how when you don't hold yourself in any way at all, so that the blame is able to soften, guilt is able to soften, critique, all of these different things are softening. It's a giving, it's a generosity, it's a kindness that we give unto ourselves. And by not holding any frame, then there's more space for what's actually true about you to emerge and blossom. Now, this holding is also super applicable to other people. Some of you have met me directly, and I work with people on retreats and in private sessions and in satsangs. And I think that by learning how to be generous with myself in this way, without holding myself into a past frame of reference, and I'm going to speak more in the meditation about how that happens. You don't actually really do it, but you notice that at a certain point that there isn't an add-on. You're not making an excuse for yourself. You're not adding a clause or somehow, excusing or adding something that isn't there. It just doesn't come anymore. However, sometimes you can feel like that voice that comes up and wants to critique or blame or say something about you or somebody else. And if you can notice it, then it's conscious. And right there, when it's conscious, you can choose not to follow it. Right there is where the softening happens and the kindness comes, where you can let that open and not hold it. So how that applies to other people. So when they come and work with me, sometimes there's an expectation, if people have come to see me several times, that I'm going to remember everything that they've shared with me about some kind of past situation or the frame in which they've held themselves. Well, I don't do that. I'm present for the moment, but I don't carry that past information along with me, because my wish, you could say, is to hold you fresh, to see things fresh and open, so something new can happen. And I'm not going to look into the past to sort something out. However, if it's present and there's still something that needs to be resolved, it will arise naturally. We don't have to go digging for it. So I want to take you in a meditation, but I want you to notice and see that generosity, this giving up of any kind of holding, creates more space in you. And also your perception then shifts on the outside in any way that you may have been holding another person or a situation or a kind of activity that maybe your life is asking you to be involved in. And you may have had an idea, a notion about, what that's like, and therefore you don't enter it. You keep a distance or keep a distance from different kind of people. So here it shifts that perception also. And you may find yourself entering into different arenas in life that perhaps at another time you wouldn't, because you were not being generous to yourself and um, holding a frame of what this is, a concept, you could say, even where it isn't actual. So that's a little bit there. So let's go ahead and just go through a guided experience in this way of being generous and not holding yourself to anything. Sometimes I think of this as how we hold ourselves hostage, or we hold other people hostage. And then in that, there's a hardening in your body. And then when you come up to those situations, and life will bring you to those situations, believe me, because, there's a universal intelligence in life that wants to set everything free and bring everything home to consciousness. So, you can't really hide if you're here and you're interested in liberation, then every part is going to ask to be liberated. So it will show itself, and it will come to meet you in a variety of different forms. This is why life is so amazing and such an opportunity, especially in intimate relationships where you can't hide. And it doesn't work if we hold a frame of reference, if we're not uh, generous with ourselves and giving things up. So let's go ahead and meditate, on this theme. So right now, let yourself invite a space of quiet around you so that you're turning off any electronics. Let yourself be in the quietest place that you can be in the external environment where you feel like you can turn inside. And then just take some nice, long, deep, nourishing breaths. And even here from the start, you may be able to notice any places in your system, in your body, and sometimes holding patterns show up in the mind as repetitive loops of thought that circle around a particular theme, maybe something about yourself or something about somebody else or an experience that happened. And you're kind of regurgitating that, just chewing on it. And reflecting upon something is really helpful for a while, but at a certain point, it's important to just let there be space in your mind and let be the noticing. So you allow thought to move, not by pushing anything away, but feeling, the generosity where the heart, the softness of the heart can even implode the mind with a kindness. mm, that doesn't fix, doesn't hold anything in any one place. So here you're giving the repetitive motion an opportunity to unwind in a space of kindness. With a curiosity perhaps of, what's here when the mind isn't looping. And notice that there's a delightfulness in space when thought isn't held. Often when thought is held, you can start to feel top heavy or a little headachy, and almost as if the life force in the body, energy in the body, can feel depleted, like it's out of reach. But it isn't. Your life force is always here. So as there is more space in the mind, let yourself fall between those spaces and simply drop down into the body. Now, if you haven't closed your eyes, of course you can. And at the same time as the eyes are going soft, let the jaw be soft. Because often when there's holding, there also can be a holding in the jaw. And we'll get to that, where first we just want to soften and open and be generous. But sometimes there's something that needs to be voiced or expressed. And when the jaw is held, this might indicate that, how can we be generous to ourselves in voicing something that needs to be said. Maybe there's somebody that needs to know something, and there's generosity in giving voice. And you can even see that now, if there was a particular situation in your mind that was looping or that you're fixated on, that as that softens and opens, maybe there is something that needs to be given a voice. And you just can take a note of that and let yourself continue to sink down. Almost as if whatever that is that wants to be given a voice, it can come from any place in the body, any place that has been holding. And for now, it's as if you just imagine that you're writing it on a pad of paper. It won't be forgotten. It will continue to clarify itself. And there's great generosity in this, because sometimes we can be in a tight or difficult situation for a long time and it hasn't resolved itself. I think sometimes when it gets really difficult, it can be called a stalemate. Sometimes another person needs a piece of information, and there's generosity in giving that, because not only are you moving out of a frame, out of a holding pattern, a frame of reference about yourself, this also is gifting the other person so that they can move out of that frame just by receiving that piece of information that doesn't come from blame or should or shame, but comes from a clarity that refines itself as we become conscious of our holding patterns, where we're holding ourselves or somebody else hostage. So continue to soften in the torso, in the breastbone. Let that open. Let the shoulders relax down and open. And give a generous breath to the space behind the heart, to the width of the body. Behind the heart can be a place where we collect holding back. What the heart truly wants to express, wants to give. You can experiment with giving the heart a voice. Is there something that someone needs to know? Something that hasn't been expressed? And remember that going through this process of noticing and softening and giving generosity to places in you that are holding, that then when it comes time to say what you need to say, it will come in a way that can be received, can be heard, can land as nourishment and be digested and assimilated in the system. And then a beautiful healing can happen, a resolution. Not one that we think should happen, but something we don't yet know what that is. We let it evolve as it will. It doesn't need our direction. And continue to soften down into the base of the belly. And here in this meditative practice, you're the noticing presence. You're the space of generosity, of kindness. Feel the nourishment that comes. So this is a generosity that deepens and gives from an unlimited source. It's like here you keep falling into a wellspring. It's unlimited. So giving from here is not exhausting. It doesn't deplete us. Can you feel that? That actually you're opening to the spaciousness of you that doesn't hold a frame of reference about anything. So there's more space. It's lifting. It lifts you up. Perception shifts. Perception about you and all things. So the capacity to receive from this wellspring of you, the gift of you that doesn't hold, becomes more and more available. And you can also feel, and you check this out for yourself, that naturally you feel more anchored and rooted through the base of the body. So this gift of wellspring, of generosity, is intimately connected to the ground, the earth, the essence of all beings. So if you don't hold yourself in a frame of reference, you're not even holding yourself as a person, limited to a body, a mind, a form. So the roots of you can extend and feel this deeper connection to the earth, to the ground of being, to the consciousness that is within and all around you, that isn't framed within a body. You're not a body. Now feel that this sense of bodilessness, not holding the frame of a form in body, in mind, in emotion. This spaciousness of you, there can be a sense of disorientation, of lightness. So remember that your breath, the intelligence of you is breathing you, the intelligence of the universe is breathing, and you're anchored, you're rooted through the base of the body, even though the body's not here. but there's a stability, a ground of stability. So let yourself just be here as this generous gift that doesn't hold a frame of reference, isn't centrally located. And notice what's perceiving from here. So you give yourself behind that, the generosity of not holding, and what's noticing that. So let yourself be so generous to have this guidance, this meditation, and not to be concerned with anything that may still want to be expressed later. We'll get to that, but here you just notice what's noticing, not holding. Not holding any form. When you feel a form arising, is what's noticing that. So allowing everything to be here, and at the same time, it's almost like the consciousness of you noticing what's noticing. And if your attention seems to travel to a particular form, maybe something in the body, your mind, the emotions, here's where generosity comes in. To not hold with any conclusion or interpretation, notion of any kind, and let yourself be informed by the noticing. So you're remaining in contact with the wellspring of you, the root of you, as consciousness intimately grounded and connected to all beings. So your generosity is a gift to all beings. And you may notice as you continue in this way that a very natural relationship of reciprocity with all beings evolves, develops, becomes very natural, a giving and receiving that doesn't come out of any should, but is a natural movement of generosity. From this deep wellspring that doesn't have an owner. It's universal. Universal nourishment. Its flavor is kindness. Its source is love. The constant ground of reciprocity with all beings. Let yourself be filled from this generous wellspring within you, belonging to all beings, universal. And before I close this meditation, you can continue with your eyes opened or your eyes closed. But I want to speak a little bit about the choosing. So when something is unconscious, it's unconscious, so we can't really choose. We can be on this journey of evolution, of awakening, of the yearning for liberation, to not suffer. And there's one part of this journey that is a freedom from, and another part of the journey is the freedom to. And I think that generosity is a big part of this journey too, the freedom to be in life, freedom to be in all of life, not just to be free of suffering or particular situations that have caused us pain or sorrow, sense of separation, whatever it might be, but the freedom to be engaged in life in a way that feels authentic, that feels natural, and that is life-giving. So in my own reflection on this, what I notice is that there is a point that comes sometimes where certain unconscious material has become conscious. And you're surprised by this at first. It's like something comes into view and you notice that, wow, I've been behaving in a particular way, whether it be out of self-interest, fear, blame, shame, some kind of addictive behavior. And then it becomes present to us. It's that moment of when it becomes conscious that if we don't add something on top of it, like you're a certain kind of person, you shouldn't have done that. And, then that's the hostage part of holding ourselves hostage, landing in victimhood. So right there is the choice. The choice is right there in the noticing, is to be generous, to not hold yourself in that frame, that is something that passed. And by not holding, as you've seen in the meditation and experienced directly, then that can open up. And there may be content to it that needs to flush out and empty out and detoxify. And then we came to that place of, well, maybe there's something that wants to be expressed, and to be able to give that a voice. And I want to say to not always behave on that immediately, but let some clearing happen. Let some um, detox, some clearing. That's a good word. So that the piece of information that wants to be expressed, whatever that is, can be generous. It's like, so you're being generous and not holding, but then also, it's not our interest to create more harm. So we don't want to hold another person in a frame of reference as if whatever happened, they did that in isolation of any other conscious or any other unconscious influences. There's so many influences that go into one particular situation. So we don't have to hold them hostage in a frame. And we can wait. And usually, when we're ready to give a piece of information, that our being generous with ourselves, it has this kind of rippling effect on everyone that we're in relationship with all around us. So there's a very good chance that whatever the situation is, or the person, the relationship, that they're ready to receive that piece of information so that they can be nourished by it and digest it. Regardless of how we have framed the situation as good or wrong, or the interpretation or the conclusion that was drawn from that and held in memory and then locked in the body. So we're allowing all of that to open, and you can feel such a generosity. And then, you just, I know you have experience of this already, but there's a nourishment, because whenever we're holding something in our system, that part of us is not being nourished by the wellspring of life that we are. That's connected to all beings, that's universal, that's unwounded, that's wholeness, that's source is love. And we fill out with that. So it's a receiving of the truth of us.